Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Draw and Talk. I don't know what episode this is. 11? 11. Number 11. I was doing some silhouette practices earlier, but that's not what I was going to demonstrate this time around. Although I was still working on the whole character building thing that we had set up in the last few episodes. Uh, After that point, I went ahead and I started doing some research and studies on different things. During one of the classes it was a private tutor session. We went over composition, and I did a quick draw over on one of the students' drawings, and he did a really quick value study, just focusing on trying to recognize those values and try and pull shapes, and then I just strengthened it up and added some information. Uh, and applied some stuff, and then I went ahead and did an ox study to kind of gear up for a Minotaur illustration. Another study from I think his name is Anthony. Starts with the last name. Starts with the last a J. His last name starts with a J. So yeah, I did some quick studies. He had some really nice little indications. He's a phenomenal digital painter. And then just some random nonsense that I was trying to sculpt together, and then shape design to figure out a nice little silhouette for the character. But right now, I think what I want to do is I want to do a little demonstration, or actually not even demonstration. I'm just gonna practice some of the skills I haven't really focused on lately. I think as an artist, we have routines we go through, and my particular routine right now is just kind of um, just kind of be in self-isolation right now, just chilling, being responsible as far as being considerate for not only my own health, but the health of others around me. Excuse me, that includes my parents and my family and my friends and all the people that have to be out and about during all these crazy things happening. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just starting this picture the way I would any other portrait. Portrait drawing is really unique in that it takes a certain amount of focus and patience, and through that focus and patience, you then practice uh, discipline and training your eye in relation to seeing the objects in front of you with a bit of accuracy and accuracy towards what is actually representational. And that's what representational art is about pulling those skills towards accuracy rather than any form of design or interpretation. However, anytime you draw, there's going to be a certain amount of interpretation and liberty um, with the sensibilities of design. So there's not really any getting around it because what you're doing eventually is just translating information for others to see. And through all translations of any format, of any medium, of any source of information or any source material, there's always going to be liberties that are taken in, and the translation is not always going to be exact within its understanding. People will apply their own experience to it, or they will apply their own knowledge and interpret the information differently. So the more we aim for accuracy, the tighter the interpretation, the less margin of errors there is whenever that information starts to pass hand to hand. Unlike the notions of telling things orally, and that's a good example is storytelling, um, because storytelling was once upon a time used in oral fashions to translate or get ideas across to younger people, and with everything that it was in regards to, with the notion of scaring them or whatever. We look at the sensibility of passing information, and people back then could not afford to take classes or educate themselves. You know, they were working people, they were laboring people in most parts of the world at the time, whenever before, uh, you know, there was a call for public education or better education for larger groups of people. So we are very fortunate to be living in an era where education is available to us, even though it may cost us an arm and a leg. Um, the ability to go out and get funding for it, or just have that as an option is really great. Because back then you didn't have much of a choice. You had to just jump right into working. And so, as we were talking about the interpretation of information, when we look at storytelling, which is a nice little reflective mirror for society and the way society would interpret things, especially during time periods that, if we look at time periods like, like I was just talking about, those older, before the Grimm stories were published, those stories were told orally. And so the interpretation of the story was left up to the person whoever was telling it. And that story was then subject to change based on the views, the wants, the likes, the taste, the experiences of the person telling it. And once it's written down, it does kind of solidify it so that most people can go back and read the Grimm stories, and they can talk to somebody else who's read those Grimm stories, and they can come up with they come up with similar information. They come out of it thinking, oh yeah, this is what happened to Snow White in the Grimm stories, or the Little Red Riding Hood stories. Um, I read that the other day. No, I did too. And don't you remember that part in the book where the hunter does this? And oh yeah, I like that part, or something like that. Um, but there's less room for the interpretation unless you start to uh, look at the motifs, look at the imagery, assess the motifs, and the literary elements that are included in that. And that leads to higher levels of thinking and analytical thinking and training, and developing those cognitive senses that are good for math and all that good stuff, and essentially good for drawing as well. But the storytelling medium was once that format that was subject to change. And so as we look at things that are subject to change with information, we have to be adaptable, and we have to apply knowledge from not only sources. We not only have the responsibility to do the research now or look up information, but now it's our responsibility to notice the difference in credibility and in respect to who's giving out that information. So that's really important for learning nowadays, especially with information just flying off out of the blue onto the internet. You don't want to fall prey to anything that could be loosely interpreted. She's got a very pretty face, and I really like the shape of what's going on here. The hair. Um, I like the placement of those things. It's just a nice photo. This is a really glamorous looking photo, even though it's a little dated. It's a very attractive young woman. I don't know what celebrity this is, or if this is a celebrity. You'll have to forgive me. Sure. But yeah, that's the wonderful thing about storytelling is that it's a nice little mirror for what's important to our culture and what's relevant. We can look at the different stories of Snow White and see how they've changed over all the years, and look at the different takes on Snow White and see what was culturally important to us and how, uh, you know, the method, the motifs, and the imagery has changed, and no longer is the story of Snow White about uh, her innocence versus the evils of the world. Instead, it becomes more about, well, looking at some of the modern movies that have come out, looking at her gaining and taking control of her own independence and becoming an independent person or a woman or just person, and taking up arms against the wicked the not the wicked witch, the her stepmother. So it's interesting. It's really neat to look at movies that in that respect and kind of view them with this outside eye. I know I'm going to watch a movie today, but let's watch it in terms of, or let's watch it and keep in mind these things, and then watch it mindfully. And once you add that presence of mind, you can decidedly change the nature of your experience, or the experience itself. You can have a different dynamic experience with it, which is fascinating. I love that. I think it kind of squished her head in here a little bit. She's got some really nice shapes, though, in her head, in her face. A very full face. Ooh, it's hot. It's warm in here. Extend the brow line a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and let's not worry about those detailing bumps, the bumpity bumps. And move the shape down a bit. It's a nice little cheek there. I wonder, what are some of your favorite movies that you watch that you can attest to seeing the cultural values or the reflective values inside the storytelling? And how many of you guys watch a movie and kind of dissect it in that way? Or maybe even watch it multiple times in terms to evaluate the cultural relevance versus the story motifs, um, versus the imagery and the cinematography, versus the character design, the script and the delivery of the dialogue. You know, there's so many facets to cinema that it becomes very complex. It becomes very, very complex. And a lot of people, I think, take it for granted. Oh, this is just entertainment. To me, it's not really just entertainment. You know, it's the way a book is entertainment to some people, but then also the way a book is something that they can use to get smarter or to get more information, to take in more information and better their knowledge base on something. Um, you know, that's the way we should view movies as well, I think. And it's just that, and I've had this argument before on several platforms that on Facebook or Instagram. There I go with my freaking hiccups again. My gosh, I'm so sorry. Um, yeah, I think, CSA, that in respect to cinema, it's still relatively new, and within our viewing experience and within our knowledge and experience of cinema, we still don't know the effects of, I mean, we still haven't fully adjusted to the effects of watching cinema for prolonged periods of time. And I think in some ways we are still just overstimulated by the visuals, by the components that make up cinema and that make up this new storytelling format because it's relatively new, like I said. And in comparison to books, books have been around for centuries. You know, our biology has probably adapted to reading books a lot more efficiently than it has the medium of cinema. Um, and just because it's been around for so much longer. So once we get past those elements of, uh, once we're able to adapt ourselves to the viewing process in a way that we can then start to dissect and dissect and take that information and use it pretty prominently. I think that that'll take time. And once we manage to do that, things will be so much better for learning through the format of movies and television and just cinema in general. Because I think technology is geared and headed towards that visual format. Anyways, you're going to have VR technology being very prominent, all these bits of creative pieces of technology that are going to make an influence on the world, like 3D printing and modeling and all these wonderful things that'll add to the tools of the human experience and add to the tools, the learning tools that we'll have. And we'll have to adjust to using those. So we'll need more creative people to utilize those tools. We'll need them to be just as analytical, just as creative. Um, but, it'll take time. It's going to take time. And once we get to that point, we'll find that certain things that we used for learning might not be as efficient as they were in the past. So let's see. I don't know uh, I don't know how far I've gotten in this video, but I'm gonna say that I need to call it quits here in just a second. So we'll see. We'll see in just a second. Let me. Diddle 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 diddle. Yeah, okay. So let's take off the underdrawing right now. Whoa, always looks funny to me. I started watching this show called Marianne. Oh man, I've never experienced a visceral anxiety built reaction to any scary movies or scary television web series shows. This one, I think I was just in the right mood. It really nicely affected me uh, to where when I was watching it, I could feel the tension in the scenes. And I'm wondering if that's just because it's executed really well or if it was a matter of uh, me just being in the right moment, the right mindset to be open to being shocked or scared or excited in that way. I don't know. I'll find out. I'm going to keep watching it to figure out what's going on. and I'll let you guys know. I do like it though, so I hope you guys can watch it and decide for yourselves how you feel about it. In the meantime, this has been a nice little warm-up exercise. I think I'm going to take a break. I could go through and I could use a soft brush. Where am I? This one. It's this one. Okay, good. Yeah, and just soften some of this stuff up. Oh, might pick up the top layer. Uh, so yeah, there's a lot to be done, but it's half decent, maybe like a quarter decent. I still haven't gotten around drawing digitally, so all of my digital experiments, all my digital drawings are very, very sloppy in relation to how I would approach drawing traditionally. But you know, if you can end up with a decent product, like I feel like this ox head was a pretty decent product. I could, of course, smooth out some of the edges with that soft brush and create some nice little textures with a different brush. But that's the beauty of drawing in a different medium. You know, digital has its own set of rules and its own tools that make it easier. You just have to be familiar with them and then learn how to navigate the functions of them. And once you get that, the application becomes easier. However, if you have solid drawing skills, it helps a lot. It helps out a lot. It saves you a bit of frustration. So, in the meantime, I'm going to let you guys go. I know that I've probably gone over time. So, have a great night, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.